Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, your daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host Kaustubha, senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City. Welcome to the show. It is a special holy day here. Called Gora Purnim. It's the appearance of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a very, very interesting character. So we're having a slight special edition of the show today. He is a very special personality who appeared, and it's hard to really even explain. First of all, I just want to say, if you're new to the show, welcome. This is a daily study of sacred literature of India, most perfect for yoga teachers who want to go deeper into the understanding of yoga philosophy, how it's relevant, how it's practical, as well as Bhakti-yogi, which is the excavating of our spirit soul, not converting. I can't convert somebody. See, the Vedic paradigm is so good. It's not about conversion of a person. I can't convert Mara, our executive producer. What are you? Executive producer, thank you. I can't convert Mara into being a spirit soul. She already is a spirit soul. You can't convert somebody of that. They already are that. They just forgot. So the yoga system in its truest sense is a waking up process to remember what we are. And when we act like what we are, we become happier. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
Okay, I like that. It's not about conversion, it's about waking up.
Well, who cares about conversion? You could just change. Converting is temporary, right? Okay, our religion wears this. Now we want you to wear this. Our religion has this haircut. Now we want you to have this haircut. Our religion prays like this. Now we want you to pray like, who cares? These are details. And what the Vedic teachings teach is the essence. We're interested in the essence. That's why I like this stuff so much. And when you understand the essence, you start to really appreciate all the details. You appreciate the details of all different spiritual practices. Your mind is open to all different ways, or people are trying to approach divinity. Yeah. What do you think about that, Mara? Mara just sits and giggles. That's her job. That's part of her job description also.
It's like the Ed McMahon of the show.
See, there she goes again. So anyway, we're going to have a special edition on Sri Caitanya. Now, I want you to understand, it's very, very interesting because Chaitanya was perceived and historically, just like if anybody's famous around the world, George Washington is America's first president, for you Europeans who have no clue of American history. George Washington was our first president. So when famous people do things, there's people around him going, wow, this guy's big. We got to start writing notes about him. We got to start looking through his diaries, and then they write biographies, or sometimes there's an autobiography. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's many biographies about Chaitanya when he appeared. And it wasn't that long ago. It was in the 1400s when people were, right, when Columbus was looking for, or people were looking for the fountain of youth or the great wealth of India. Isn't that interesting that Columbus at the time of Chaitanya was looking for the great wealth of India? And he ended up in America calling us Indians. Not me, but you know what I'm talking about. You guys are Indians. We're actually not. We actually have our own completely different culture. No, you're Indians. No, we're not. Yes, you are. You're Indians. They're all Indians. We even call the South Americans Indians. Isn't that amazing? It's unbelievable how when you have the biggest mouth, I know where this is going. But when you have the biggest mouth, it's like your voice gets heard the most. What are you thinking, Kaustubha? You tell me honestly.
I love hearing your voice emanating from your big mouth.
You know what? It's interesting. If you got a big mouth like me and you know who you are, you can't change that. There are these like Vipassana retreats where you just go, I'm going to just go and say nothing for 10 days. And even though it's sort of interesting, and even though my wife says if I did that, my head would blow up, the fact is you can't change what you are. All you can do is refine what you are. You can't be, right? You can let go of bad things, but I'm just always going to be a little loud. And that's okay. I tried to fight that for years, but you can purify it by the loud stuff that comes out of your mouth. Make it glorifying the bhaktas. Make it glorifying the divine. Make it appreciating people. And then you are what you are. Sometimes I see it all the time with a 200-hour teacher training. People do that teacher training and all of a sudden they feel like, now I have to talk quietly. Now I have to say Sanskrit words occasionally, like Shanti. Now, how are you? Well, it's not authentic. Just be authentic, be real, but just don't do it with some weird ego. Anyway, can I share my first insight about Sri Caitanya? He was looked at from different vantage points. Like even just from a distance, he was a child prodigy. I was making this point at the Bhakti Center the other day. If you didn't know him or didn't even really respect him as a saintly person, even historically, he was one of these child prodigies that are very, very sort of mysterious. I find child prodigies completely mysterious. They have incredible talents at an early age, like demonstrating from their very, almost like toddlerhood, from their babyhood. He became an incredible scholar with so many followers, because of his incredible learning in debate and Sanskrit as a child. So sometimes we hear about people with material qualities that are, singing, dancing, chess players, intellectuals at a young age, children in 8th grade going to Harvard. This is like it's a phenomenon that happens. So at the very least, he was this prodigy. Now, people who got to know him a little bit more, they witnessed him doing miracles, like Christ-like miracles are documented by his biographers. And they were just like stunned and they recorded them. But the people that actually were very close to him, now these people weren't ordinary people either. Those people at the time were considered incredible sages, just like we have. It's hard to even do that today because we don't have anything like that in our culture so much. We have like a priest, or we have like a holy person or a rabbi, but someone who is completely renounced from the world. They like walk their talk with such deep integrity. They're incredibly learned. They've renounced everything. They're gurus with many, many disciples in their own right. They were very close to him, and they were saying, this person is not just a prodigy. This person is not just a mystic. Because there were a lot of mystics in India. This person's actually an avatar. And so there's books by these people, biographies about these people, where Kaustubha and I get our information from as well. So whether you take Chaitanya's appearance today, it's like his birthday, so to speak. If you take it just sort of as here's an interesting person historically, here's a phenomenal person historically, here's a mystic historically, here's an avid, wherever you take it, you'll enjoy just the appreciation, I think. Because if it wasn't for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we wouldn't even have this Zoom group right now. It's really, he spearheaded Zoom. Want to share anything else before we I think it's important just to put it in perspective.
But our use of Zoom, yeah.
Our use of Zoom, that's what I meant. He's not like an internet.
Software engineer.
Software engineer avatar.
Well, there's so much to say, and it's a little, like Raghunath and I were just speaking just briefly before the show. It's a little hard for us to share too much, because if you're unfamiliar, it's very the esoteric side of Bhakti. There's the very practical side of bhakti, which is what you're going to explain to someone if they're new to it. There's the practical side, like the more side that just makes more practical sense. Like, okay, I'm not the body, that the body is just a vehicle for the soul, and that I am the soul that's perceiving the world through the body and the senses, and that also through the mind, which is becoming programmed by what I take in through my senses, and it's convincing me of a false sense of identity, and I fall under the illusion that the things of this external world can give me happiness when really it's my own true nature, and et cetera, et cetera. And like, so these are like, okay, I can sit down with a rational person and discuss these ideas. Maybe they'll take to it, maybe they won't, but that's not the esoteric side, right? So there's all of that practical side, but all of that practical side leads to the esoteric side of bhakti. And the esoteric side has to get into divine love. In other words, that underneath that, if you get to the nature of that soul, what it's designed for and what it does in its spiritual, when it's situated in its spiritual truth, when we get beyond all the illusion of this world, what happens then? Well, then that becomes a question of divine love, which is what we were made to do. And so then you get into this esoteric side, which is going to say that all the relationships that we're fooling around with in this world, that we're searching after the love in different ways in this world, that these relationships are just reflections of our spiritual existence, where there's love in many different varieties. And then so, books like the Upanishad, or like you take the Bhagavad Gita, it's going to deal especially with that practical side, the practical understanding of bhakti. Bhagavatam is going to deal with that practical side, but it's going to go all the way up to the esoteric. And it's going to get to the 10th canto, where it's going to describe Krishna's life. And then here you have God himself, but he's appearing as a boy, and he's engaged in pastimes of love. And if you look at those without the esoteric understanding, they just seem like stories. But if you understand the esoteric meaning of them, then on a theological level, you can say, my God, this is an amazing conception of reality. Right? That there's that the being from which all of this comes from actually, and it's this esoteric thought that like great bhakti yoga saints and scholars ponder and wonder about. And when I say wonder, I mean like think, my goodness, that's wonderful. That most powerful being, that most powerful source of everything, becomes vulnerable himself voluntarily to love, becomes even controlled by love, or what we can call bhakti. So that the bhakti itself, or love for God itself, is even in one sense more powerful than God, because if you have it in your heart, you can actually even control God.
And this is what this show is about today: how to control God.
So the point is just like we see in this world that we become controlled by love, and that God himself becomes controlled by love. But in that realm, that love is pure. In that realm, that love is not mixed with any selfish motive, with any greed, with any lust, with any desire that's separate from pure, unadulterated, unconditional love. True unconditional love is what existence is about. It's what we're meant to be immersed in, 24 hours a day. Now, so that's just like an idea of, okay, that's what Bhagavatam leads to, is understanding the depths of that's what yoga leads to ultimately. But then it gets even more esoteric. It takes it up a notch, because it says, now just think of this as a theological concept, that God himself, he recognizing a subtle truth about love, about a subtle truth about divine love, that the feeling of holding love in your heart for another, that feeling is actually more powerful than feeling the love of someone towards you, right? Being the holder of love in the heart is a more profound and powerfully moving experience, even more so than someone feeling love for you. And we can, and sometimes examples like, if you have a mother with a little baby, and she's looking at the baby and the baby's feeling the love of the mother. It's so nice. But the mother's heart is just completely like melting and overflowing with emotion, when she's holding that little baby. It's even more powerful. And so the idea is that God, he's saying that I see my devotees, I see those that love me, and the experience of that bhakti, the experience of that love is so deep and so intense. It's more intense than what I feel. I wonder, what is it like to experience that? And so therefore, Krishna becomes an avatar or descends in another form of Sri Caitanya to experience what is it like to hold bhakti in my heart for Krishna. I need to know that. In order to know that, I need to become a devotee of Krishna. So it's an esoteric idea about divine love, that God himself comes in the form of a devotee of God to experience what love of God is like. And that's the internal reason Sri Caitanya appears. And then there's the external reason that Sri Caitanya appears, and that is to teach others the method for attaining that love in the age of Kali, in the darker age. And that age is, and that method, or that practice of yoga for this age is popularized by Sri Caitanya in the form of kirtan, in the form of, through music, meditating on mantras that are the names of God. And that in this age where we aren't great yogis, where we have difficulty wandering off to the forest and just controlling our mind and becoming deeply absorbed within, where we're hopeless of that and our minds are caught up in petty nonsense, everywhere we go, that we need a method that's very direct and effective, and that method becomes blessed in this age. The congregational, united singing and dancing, glorifying a particular object of meditation, the names, the form of God in the form of sound, his names, or these divine mantras, that becomes popularized by Sri Caitanya as the method for this age. So he's got his internal reason for manifesting. Krishna comes in this form of Sri Caitanya with the internal reason, well, I want to know what it's like to hold love for God in my heart. And his external reason is to popularize bhakti practice, particularly through the chanting of the names.
Now, Kaustubha mentioned there's not many good yogis in this age. Maybe he's not familiar with a few Instagram accounts. Well, the idea of not good yogis is that
I don't know if I phrased it like that.
No, but it's true. There are no good yogis in this, because what he's saying by that is, when we talk about yogi, it's not just like an hour and a half of my physical practice. Even if you're an incredible acrobat or an incredible contortionist, to really practice yoga, the mind has to be so still, not just on the mat, but when you leave, also on the mat, but when you leave that mat, that you actually have a deeper inner connection every moment. It's not just like, okay, I have a physical practice, or some people even blend it in. So like, well, I do CrossFit twice a week, and I do yoga 3 days a week, and then I got kettlebells on Sunday. It's not that. We're talking about the origins of yoga here, what we're supposed to be doing with yoga. And that internal esoteric things Kaustubha is talking about, there was also something that was just happening externally. Like just like real world, like what's going on in the news. And the news at that time in India was, there is a strange, almost like a spiritual, it sounds crazy, like a spiritual possession where people just got into bhakti. There was sort of like a rebirth, a renaissance, so to speak.
It's called the Bhakti movement sometimes, right?
Huh?
The Bhakti movement, they'll sometimes call it like that.
The Bhakti movement. It happened in
this 500 years ago.
Yeah, and people, and it's hard to believe, but if you actually look what was happening, you'd have some people like heads of state giving up their positions and going to this place, Vrindavan, Krishna's appearance place. Oh, and billionaires, millionaires giving up their wealth and just like almost like spiritually possessed, saying, I'm not interested any longer. I have to go to Vrindavan. incredible tenured professors at, most prestigious university giving up their positions and going to Vrindavan. Almost is like, it's hard to understand how things happen like that without the internet, but they did. There are viral things that happened pre-internet. If you are pre-internet, there were things that people knew about it from New York to LA, and it wasn't advertised. But anyway, and everyone went to Vrindavan and they wanted to meet this person, Chaitanya. And it was, even externally, it was a very, very interesting phenomenon. There was such a rebirth, because bhakti is an eternal practice, resurrecting your spiritual life in connection with the divine. That's an eternal practice. But sometimes things become popular and not that popular. I was using the example the other day is like, when we were young in New York City, to get a green juice was like, you can't get a green juice. Now you get a green juice every block. Even if you want, like, I want a fresh squeezed orange juice, people will like, what? You don't want a green juice? So it's sort of like things become like it popularized and then unpopularized and then popularized again. So bhakti was in this incredible renaissance then.
A lot of important writings, a lot of songs were written at that time, a lot of important bhakti artists, important bhakti figures.
Yeah, deities were discovered again, like rediscovered, taken out, worship, the masses. And then it became, it gets hidden again. And then there's like a renaissance in the 60s, truthfully, when Prabhupada came here, like spread bhakti so big. And I actually think I think there's a renaissance right now.
I agree.
Matter of fact, Raghunath Swami predicted. Raghunath Swami, our teacher Raghunath Swami, he's like a predictive philosopher. He sometimes speaks in prophecy. I kid you not. And he just told me and Kaustubha and Yogi Charu one day, he goes, there will be an explosion of bhakti happening in the next few years. And he said the hub of it will be at the Bhakti Center in New York City. And he sat us down and told us that. It was like almost scary. He was like telling the future. And the interesting thing was, that was even before the Bhakti Center had a name. He just said the hub of it will be at 25 First Avenue. It was a very interesting day. I'll never forget.
In this room that I'm in right now.
Yeah, I was in Kaustubha's apartment. We were all there and he was meeting with us.
I remember what he said was, if I remember exactly, he said that there'll be an explosion of bhakti in New York City, and he said that's beyond what we can imagine.
Isn't that exciting?
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. It's happening. We're on Zoom. We're talking about bhakti.
I do see people are eager for it. People want to understand. People really do want to understand. We want to get beyond the superficialities of yoga. We want to get beyond the superficialities of religion. We want to get to the essence of it all. We want something that's transformed, that's powerfully transformative. We want something that has the answers to the issues of life. And it's there in this tradition in a beautiful culture, right? A practice that's doable in a beautiful culture that we can absorb ourselves in. And so I do think it's growing. I do think it's happening, and it's great to be a part of it.
I mean, think about it. When we first got into it, you try to tell anybody about bhakti, they're like, get out of here, loser. Like, bhakti's the new black. It's like cool. It was never cool when we were younger. We did it anyway.
So, shall we talk a little bit more about Sri Caitanya?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, so I pulled up, Sri Caitanya was, he was born in a place called Mayapur, which is part of a larger place called Navadvip, which is in what is now called West Bengal on the bank of the Ganges River. And it's a place that Raghunath and I have visited many times. It's really, to be honest, it's hard for me to describe how much love, I have for this place, how special it is. Raghu, I just see your head like it's like a floating.
Oh, I'm trying to be all professional like you are at your place. So I raise my computer screen higher. If you really see Kaustubha's setup, he's like, this guy's pro. You see my setup, usually it's me and Mara just dropping things, wrecking stuff, knocking over things. So I was like, I gotta take it up a notch. So anyway, I'm trying to put that thing you sent me up high. Sorry about that.
No problem. And now this is an important point. It says that Krishna and his what's called Dhamma, Dham, right, or Dhma, Dham, the holy Dham. The Dham means like the holy place. And it said that Krishna, when he appears in this world, he appears with his Dham, with his holy place that appears in what's called Vrindavan, which, you know, externally is a town about 90 or so kilometers southeast of Delhi. But the Bhakti yogis don't see that as a material place, but that it's a holy place. It's like a transcendental realm. And Krishna and that Dham, that place, the mood that pervades him in that place is called madhurya, or sweetness. Right? That when you go to Vrindavan, you feel the sweetness of devotion. You feel the sweetness. You feel the sweet feature of God. His sweetness is manifest there, right? Not his awe and reverence, not that kind of glory, but you feel the personal sweetness of God appearing as this lovable person that's loved in these different varieties of way. That sweetness is called madhurya, or sweetness. But when Sri Caitanya comes, it's that same person, it's the same Krishna, but his mood is different. So it's the same person, but the predominant mood is different. And the predominant mood, hot seat, Raghunath, or Sri Caitanya?
Madhurya Dham.
I'm sorry?
Madhurya Dham.
Well, that's Krishna. Madhurya.
Audarya Dham.
Audarya, yeah.
Audarya Dham.
Right?
Duh. Sorry about that.
So that Audarya means like compassionate grace, you know, compassionate mercy. That this is God when that compassionate mood is just fully manifesting in him. And this is what's considered to be so special about the descent of Sri Caitanya. It's almost like, well, he's so compassionate that he wants to give this bhakti, or this love of God, for free. He wants to give it to people that aren't qualified to get it. He wants to give it to everyone. And we're not so qualified as these yogis in this age. You know,
this is where I step in.
Me too. I'm right there.
This is like an important point here. And that's why I meant Zoom is possible, brought to you by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu.
Right.
Because it's so hard to understand Hinduism. If you go from the outside and try to get in, first of all, it's almost like not welcome in. And second of all, it's sort of like, because they're not preaching to you, so to speak. But second of all, it's like, it is so confusing. There's no access point in. I was, and if people don't, truthfully, as far as I study a lot of Broadway type of like Hindu Dharma and things like that, and read many books from many traditions, there is no entrance point for the most part if you're from the outside. Chaitanya, he broke it down and made it very simple to enter. And because they're so refined in their practice, in their lifestyle, in their thoughts, it was almost like, you can't bring your dark stuff in here. We're gonna keep you guys out. So there's almost sometimes a little bit of snobbery with it sometimes. But Chaitanya made it, the entrance level was for all. You're a mess, get over here. You're a mess, you're messy, you're even more qualified, get over here. It's like the dented can, the special dented can ticket we have.
There you go. He came for the dented cans.
He came for the dented cans. And that's why I have such great appreciation for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
And it's not, this is the crazy thing. This is why he's considered Krishna in the Audarya mood, in the incredibly compassionate mood. Because not only is he coming for the dented cans, but he's giving the dented cans not only yoga, but the highest, most esoteric pinnacle of yoga.
He's given the highest to the lowest. That's what's going on here.
Exactly. And what is that highest? It's not only like the peace of yoga, you know, that feeling of relief from material suffering. It's not only love for God or bhakti, but it's love in the most intimate sense. It's not the love with the awe and reverence, but it's the personal, intimate love of Vrindavan, that I love God like my best friend. I love God like he's my child. I love God like a romantic lover. That this, and again, now we're talking about the very esoteric side of bhakti. It's hard to discuss with someone if they're not going to approach it with a little bit of respect, right? But that's the very highest gift of yoga, is this very intimate type of love connection with God. And Sri Caitanya is giving that. His specific mission is to give that to all the dented cans, right? To the people that have no ability to sit peacefully and meditate, that have no ability to renounce and break themselves from the material things. We're weak, we're dented, you know. And he's saying, I don't care. I'm not looking for your qualifications as a great yogi, because I know in this Kali Yuga, practically nobody's got that. I'm just giving it out for free anyway. Take it, just take it. How do I take it? Just chant these names. Just get together with music and just chant these names, and you're going to get it. Just take it.
You know, it's interesting, Kaustubha. What in one sense it's very esoteric, but in another sense it's so in your face what's going on. I find that some of the students who are listening for a short time can encapsulate the whole yoga system in a few sentences and make it very, like if someone says, well, what is yoga? Oftentimes people plugged in to Chaitanya's teachings can explain it very simply. Whereas if you ask a person who's been teaching yoga for 30 years, 35 years, but not necessarily connected to Lord Chaitanya, practicing asanas and maybe Danta, and if you ask them about yoga, you'll get a long-winded explanation of yoga, but you feel like missing some essential teaching. Oftentimes, when you really understand something, you can explain it in a few sentences. And that's what I've noticed with a lot of the students. Like you say, well, what's the goal of yoga? The goal of yoga is to reconnect with the divine. Boom. Chaitanya taught us like the essential teachings, not because I was a great yogi, great enunciate, greatly learned, I had mystical powers, not because of any of those reasons, because I was a completely dented can. And in that dentedness, the divine hand gets extended. And that's what we do as teachers also. And that's why we push this very, very important principle for teachers and practitioners to be compassionate, loving, and tolerant. Because we have what we have by the mercy of teachers who've been compassionate, tolerant, and loving. And therefore, we extend that hand because that hand's been extended to us, to all the dented cans out there in the universe. People have tolerated. So that's our mood as well. And therefore we're trained in honesty. Chaitanya teaches you to be living with a type of deep honesty. Now, some people translate that word honesty as humility, but humility can be sort of like, I'm so low, I'm so fall. It's like self-deprecation. That's not humility. Humility means to understand that I'm tiny, part of something massive. I'm not the center. I'm a contributor to this. I want to serve the center. And in this concept of humility that Chaitanya taught, when you understand that, I am very small. I'm part of something bigger. Then when he sees that you're embracing reality, he starts flooding you with information. And that, again, is why newer people, even on a bhakti path, can really explain the intricacies of the yoga system better than people practicing for a long time, because he's given some sort of inner access through knowledge and through a practical practice. Just like the concept of a sadhana. Like we know, a spiritual sadhana of chanting and hearing, which is what we're doing right now. We're not like singing songs, but you're speaking and I'm listening. So that is hearing and chanting. And that happening on a regular basis, which is a sadhana. That's what a sadhana is. it's affecting us all. It's like directing us. I had a great text message yesterday I shared with you, Kaustubha. I'll share.
Yeah.
But a lady wrote me, she's like, I just listened to it in the car randomly. And because of it, I find myself saying what you guys say all day long. And not only that, my kids in the car are walking around going, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya. You can't help it. This stuff's addictive. It's addictive, and it starts to change the trajectory of your existence. Thank you, Lord Chaitanya.
So it sounds to me like what you're getting into right now. It's reminding me of the only writings that Sri Caitanya left behind, which was simply 8 verses, called the Sri Shikshastakam. It's a kind of a generic title, right?
Astakam.
Yeah, it's Shikshastakam. Shiksha means instruction, and Astakam means a collection of 8 instructions. So the Sri Caitanya, he left behind this Shikshastakam. Now, it's a fascinating collection of 8 verses. It's built around this idea that through the names of Krishna, through the names of God, that this is the primary focus of meditation, that these names are very powerful, that these names are coming, that as we were saying, that it's kind of made the whole yoga process very simple and easy, and yet still we're so dented that our minds are not attracted to these names. So how unfortunate that is. But that if we want to receive the power of these names, then we need to look at our own character and address that to make us more receptive to the power of it. And then it goes into the very esoteric layers, the depth of divine love. But maybe we could read those prayers today, the Shikshastakam, and especially discuss that third one. But just dip into it quickly. Does that sound good, Raghu?
That sounds good. I think that's the best way to order. By the way, Lord Chaitanya taught many things, and a lot of times his teachings is through his pastimes or his activities that he did, and his biographers wrote down many of the things that he said and how he lived. But the actual instructions that he left were only 8.
Right. His own written ones that he wrote down. Okay, so then let's go ahead and read them. Do you want to chant the Sanskrit for the first one, and we'll just kind of go through them somewhat quickly?
Yeah, I'll chant the Sanskrit first. Can you hear me okay? Your mic's a little crapping out.
Mine is?
Well, at least how I hear it. So maybe
I heard you lagging a little bit.
Well, you think I'm lagging? You're lagging. You think I'm lagging? He thinks I'm lagging. It's a material world. I blame it on my upstate New York internet. But okay, so this first verse is so beautiful. Chaitodarpanamarjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreyakaraiva chandrika avataranam vidyavadu jivanam ananda buddhi vardhanam pratipatam purnamritasvardhanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Isn't that pretty? Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, like Jai Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Here's a beautiful line, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years. You ever go into like an old house, old attic, something that's been abandoned, and so you pick up a vase or a lamp or a glass bowl. It's just like covered with disgusting grime. That's my heart. That's my dented old heart. And it's covered with, and where's it from? It's from accumulated for years. And it's just stuck on. So all glories to this kirtan movement, which cleanses the dust of the heart accumulated for years, and this extinguishes the fire of conditioned life, of repeated birth and death. So conditioned life is, we say this word a lot, we don't think about it, but condition means, we were at a great yoga studio yesterday, Hudson Yoga Project. I said, what does condition mean? I said, well, just look around the room. Everybody's like wearing the same color. Everybody's like in black. It's like, why do we wear black? Why isn't someone wearing like polka dot? It's because culture teaches us to be a certain way, act a certain way, have our hair cut a certain way. Like in the 70s, we had our hair like this. In the 80s, we wore it like that. At one time, now we wear skinny jeans. In the 90s, we wore giant stovepipe jeans. Merritt, do you remember those? They didn't have those in private school, stovepipe jeans. But anyway, it's the idea is that we are conditioned, we are trained up by culture, and we do whatever culture says. At one time, all the men collectively said, let's wear wigs. Yeah, what kind of wigs? White wig. White wigs with a ponytail. What? Right now we think that's, imagine me and Kaustubha said, okay, we got new fashion going on. White wigs, ponytails, who's in?
With powder all over the wig, right?
Right, it's ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous. It was completely cool. If you didn't have a good white wig, you were uncool. That's what conditioned life means. We completely forget our identity and adopt a costume. So we get conditioned, and we make silly choices again and again. That was what repeated birth and death is, samsara. So it says this Sankirtan movement is a benediction for humanity because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. How would you explain the benediction moon?
Well, Sri Caitanya is compared to moon himself. It's said that the rays of the moon are very cooling, and that we're kind of burning in the fever of material life.
Well, when they say benediction moon, does that mean him or the blessings of divinity?
He's writing it himself. We'll see it as him, but he'll also just see it as that it's the benediction moon of the movement of Sankirtan, of the movement of this chanting of these names. It's spreading its rays. It spreads out.
Of all auspiciousness, it's just spreading.
Yeah.
It increases an ocean of transcendental bliss. And it enables us to fully taste, I love this line, it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
Okay, so it's a beautiful verse that just is saying, hey, in this age, we're lucky that this moon is spreading its rays of Sankirtan, that we can just dive into these names, and they're going to give us what we're always hankering for. They're going to give us the happiness that we need. It's going to purify us of all our conditioning, of all our false identification with the body, false identification with the family, false identification with the nation, false identification with the race, false identification with the gender, false identification, all that conditional life. It just by absorbing in these names, we can transcend it.
You want to read the next one?
Yeah. So what a benediction! My God, that's great. Okay, if that's possible, I would like to take part in that. Let's hear a little bit more about it. So the next verse is Nam Nam Makari Bahuda Nijasarva Shaktis Tartar Pitani Matas Marne Nakalaha Eta Drishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midishamiha Janinanuragaha. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings. Everything that yoga can give you, it gives it all. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names. So there's Krishna, there's Govinda. Oh, like it says here, like Krishna and Govinda. I just said that. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. So this is called absolute, right? Let me read this, because I just came across something. The social media, it distracts us so much, but if you're connected with some of the right people on social media, you get a lot of good stuff, And so this is something I came across.
You got right people to connect with on social media? Let me know. I'm connected with all the wrong people.
So this is a conversation with Srila Prabhupada and one of his disciples, who was Swarup Damodar Maharaj, who was like this amazing person. He was a sannyasi or renunciate. He was from Manipura, which is this very northeastern part of India, which is it's almost like a whole nother country, where people have their features are kind of a blend between India and China, I would say, right? And they had a very rich bhakti tradition in that area. And but he left there and became a student of science at UCLA, I believe, and went on to become like an important scientist. So in any case, he's talking with Prabhupada, and they're talking about the term relative, versus the term absolute, right? What does it mean, absolute? So this is Prabhupada. He says, relative truth. You don't understand relative? Relative means you cannot understand anything without the other. That is called relative. Suppose I say good man. I cannot understand a good man without having another man, a bad man. This is called relative. Is that clear or not? And Swarup Damodar says, opposite, one opposite of the other. Prabhupada says, yes, just the opposite, yes. You cannot understand light without darkness. This is relative. Unless there's darkness, how can you say this is light? So opposite. So he's talking like that. And then Swarup Damodar says, but then Prabhupada says, but where is that absolute, where the bad and good, the black and white, everything coincide? That is absolute. Everything is there. That is not distinction. Everything is there. That is called absolute Brahman. So Brahman means the spiritual energy. When you get to the spiritual energy, it's absolute. And then Swarup Damodar says, in the material as well as the spiritual platforms, everything is relative. And Prabhupada says, spiritual platform has no relativity. There is only absolute. Material world, 1 + 1 = 2. 1 - 1 = 0. In the spiritual world, 1 + 1 = 1. 1 - 1 = 1. This is spiritual. Then he quotes the Upanishads. Purnasyam purnam adaya purnam eva vasishyate. 1 - 1 = 1. That is the description in the Isha Upanishad. So what it's saying there is that when we try to place our material calculation on spiritual energy, it doesn't always add up. But what's being said here is that the name, here in this world, it's a relative world. I'm holding a pen, right? So the name pen is different from the pen itself. If I say pen, it's not enough for me to write with, right? You with me, Raghu?
You have to hold the pen.
So
Can't just say pen, nothing will happen.
Just say pen and I can write with it. But it's saying that in the spirit, with the spiritual energy, the name Krishna is Krishna. It's absolute energy. There's no difference. So this verse is saying, oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. So it's you. When I say Krishna, I'm associating with you and everything that is you in the absolute sense. He says, and then he says, there are, and this is for the dented cans, there are not even hard and fast rules for the chanting of these names. In most yoga, in all yoga practices, there's all these rules and regulations and difficult, you try to practice Ashtanga yoga, how difficult that is to achieve the goal of Ashtanga yoga. And when I say Ashtanga yoga, I don't necessarily mean the particular sequence of asanas that are popularized by Prabhupada. I'm talking about the traditional idea of Ashtanga yoga, where you go through the 8 limbs up to the level of samadhi and completely still the mind. How many regulations and rules? It just starts with the yamas and the niyamas. It's all, and it says they're not even hard and fast rules for the chanting of these names. You don't have to have just taken a shower and be perfectly clean, and you don't have to be born in any particular caste. There's no rules. But then like the depth of the dentedness. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. That's that Audarya mood, that merciful, compassionate mood. But here's the clincher. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them, right? That these names are non-different from Krishna. They're the source of all transcendental bliss, like we just read in the previous verse. But I'm so dented. My mind has become so conditioned, so deeply immersed in illusion, that when I'm exposed to these names, I have no attraction for them. And I sit there and I regulate myself to chant them, and I don't dive deep into them. Somehow, like the sun, these names are powerful, they're full of energy, but it's like I'm indoors and I'm not getting the rays of that sun. What do I need to do to become receptive to that energy, so that the natural attraction for these names will arise in my heart, that when I chant them, I'll feel the symptoms of spiritual bliss? What is it in me that's problematic, that's preventing me from receiving that full power. And then we get to the next verse, which is considered to be one of the most important verses in Bhakti-yoga, that it's said that one should wear this verse around their neck at all times. Always remember it. Always keep it in mind, because it's so fundamental and essential. This verse right here. Raghu, take it away.
Shrinapi sunuchena tarorapi sahishnuna. Do you know this, Mara? Oh, Mara. Come on. How long have you been around here? What, they didn't teach you this in private school? Manena manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind. Right? Thinking oneself lower than straw on the street. So in a village, in a agricultural village, you have straw. It's like like grass on the street. We think of ourselves not in any big way. Generally, we walk around, we're very big. That's why the culture of bhakti, people are always bowing down. And even though it's so like, well, why do you got to bow down? It's like an Indian thing. Do we have to do that? There's something about tangibly putting your body on the ground that makes you, you get over your big ego. So once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw, one should be more tolerant than a tree. So this is where I derive the 6 pillars of bhakti from. What does a tree do? Well, people carve their names in a tree. Kids are hanging on branches and snapping the tree branches off. People are hacking at a tree. Tree never complains.
In the hot sun, right?
In the hot sun. People take shelter of the tree, but the tree's not taking shelter of anything. It's just laying there. So the tree gives shelter, but and takes so much. Yeah, sits in the sun, sits in the rain, sits in the snow, sits in the wind, and it never complains. I've never once heard a tree complain. So they say that trees are completely tolerant. So this is how we chant. If you want it, these are like the yamas and the niyamas for going to a kirtan. They should teach you. This should be posted on the wall before any kirtan. If you want this magic process to work. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're just going to sing songs. And we want to become transcendentalists. So Chaitanya is teaching you access into these mantras. Now, people chant mantras. People still chant mantras. People go to kirtans all the time. But there's a way to do it. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of a sense of prestige. Right? I have a lot of false prestige because I think I'm the body and I think I'm my stuff, etc. And be ready to offer respects to all others. Means people can do whatever they want to me, but I'm gonna be completely respectful to other people. When you start developing a consciousness like this, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. It's actually quite beautiful. It truthfully, you can just the 6 pillars is really taken from this and really broken it down and really analyzed. And this is sort of the entranceway into chanting. Otherwise, what'll happen is you'll chant, and after I'm bored. I'm boring. This is boring. I'm going to say the same thing forever and ever. What? Then I'm going to sing it. What? So again, he's giving us access. Just like sometimes you try to get in a nightclub, you can't get in. There's like a big guard there. Chaitanya's saying, everybody in, but I have no money. Get in anyway, but I'm not that intelligent. Get in anyway. I'm a completely dented can. Get in anyway.
But I'm not interested.
But I'm not interested. Get in anyway. And this is the beauty. This is the beauty of Chaitanya. And it's his appearance day today. So anyway, that's our show. We didn't get to go through all 8 instructions, but
another time.
Yeah, those are important ones. It's a great way to start our day. And if you have some time, you can either go to a local temple or say some extra prayers for your devotion today, or you can
gotta do some kirtan.
Yeah, you can have some kirtan in front of your little altar. Just have some kirtan with some friends.
Moonrise
Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.
Moonrise night is a very auspicious time. Try to absorb your mind in the holy name.
Very auspicious time. Thanks to Kaustubha Crew and everybody joining us on the podcast for the first time. This is our special edition show of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. Welcome to that. Or it's over. Not welcome, but thanks for coming. And we do this every morning at about 5 a.m. Eastern time. If you're on Zoom but you're not on the Telegram group, get on our Telegram group because sometimes we have to change the times, and Mara will send you out a link of when it happens. If you're loving what we're doing, join our patreon.com/wisdom of the sages group. We're always trying to put new information on there, and thanks for everybody who's joined and supported us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the Zoomers who are here, Europeans, North Americans, people listening from all over this planet. Especially thanks to the Californians who tune in later. Especially thanks to the people that I can see your animated faces instead of the blackouts who are back there hiding behind that black screen and their fake names like Galaxy J7, whoever you are. And you frozen faces, you guys drive me crazy too. I want to see that real face. Oh yeah, the email here is wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And I'm happy that we met all the Zoomers this weekend. We had a big Zoomer reunion. Me and Kaustubha got to meet everybody in New York and also in Hoboken. There was a massive Zoom influx. Patrick Franco said, yeah, we all listened to the show here at the studio. Like, it was kind of, here we go. Come on.